Did you know the United States has only changed its constitution 27 times in more than 2 centuries? Think about that. In over 230 years of history, with wars, protests, and massive social change, the document that runs the country has been rewritten less than 30 times. Each change is called an amendment, and every single one was added because the people demanded something new, more freedom, more fairness, or more clarity. That's what makes the Constitution so powerful. It isn't just a piece of paper. It's a living set of rules that can grow with a nation. The very first 10 amendments, called the Bill of Rights, set the foundation for American life. They define your right to speak, to protest, to defend yourself, and to live free from government overreach. Without them, democracy as you know it would not exist. And here's the deal. If you stay with me until the very end, you'll not only understand all 27 amendments, but you'll also see how they still shape the debates we have today, from freedom of speech to voting rights. By the end, you'll have a complete map of how America protects its people. So, let's start at the beginning, the First Amendment. The story of America's freedoms begins with the First Amendment. It protects your voice, your right to speak your mind, your right to believe in any religion or none at all. It gives the press the power to report and the people the power to gather and demand change. Without it, silence would rule. With it, citizens can challenge authority without fear. The Second Amendment has always sparked debate. It gives the right to keep and bear arms. For some, it's about personal safety. For others, it's about resisting tyranny. At its heart, it reflects an old truth. When the Constitution was written, militias were seen as the backbone of security. Today, it's still one of the most argued rights in America. The Third Amendment feels unusual now, but it was vital back then. It stops the government from forcing soldiers into private homes during peace. Colonists had lived through that under British rule. Imagine strangers in uniform sleeping in your bed without your consent. This amendment made sure it would never happen again. The Fourth Amendment guards your privacy. It says the government cannot search your home or seize your property without a warrant. That warrant must be based on probable cause. In other words, your personal space is protected unless the law has a clear reason. It draws a line between authority and individual freedom. The Fifth Amendment brings protections in the courtroom. You cannot be forced to confess. You cannot be tried twice for the same crime. You cannot have your property taken without fair payment. And above all, you are guaranteed due process of law. It's about fairness, making sure the government plays by its own rules. The Sixth Amendment ensures justice moves quickly and fairly. If you're accused of a crime, you have the right to a speedy trial, a lawyer, and a jury. You have the right to face your accusers. You can bring witnesses in your defense. It guarantees that no one is left alone against the power of the state. The Seventh Amendment expands that protection to civil cases. If money or property is in dispute, you can demand a jury. This was a safeguard against judges who might side with the government or the wealthy. It keeps ordinary people involved in deciding justice. The Eighth Amendment stands against cruelty. It bans excessive bail and fines. It bans punishments that are cruel and unusual. What counts as cruel is debated. But the principle is clear. Justice cannot cross into torture or humiliation. Punishment must remain human. The Ninth Amendment is short but powerful. It reminds us that the rights listed in the Constitution are not the only rights people have. Just because something isn't written down doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This protects freedoms that the founders could not imagine, but future generations would fight for. And finally, the 10th Amendment. It says any powers not given to the federal government or denied to the states belong to the states or the people. It reinforces balance. It limits federal control. It reminds everyone that ultimate power rests with the people. Together, these 10 amendments form the Bill of Rights, the backbone of American liberty. They protect speech, faith, privacy, justice, and balance. They are the shield of the individual against the government. The 11th Amendment may sound technical, but it has deep meaning. It limits lawsuits against states in federal courts. Why? Because after independence, states wanted protection from endless legal battles. This amendment reinforced state sovereignty and set boundaries between state and federal power. The 12th Amendment changed how presidents are elected. In the early years, the system caused confusion and rivalries. So this amendment created separate ballots for president and vice president. It made elections clearer and reduced chaos at the top of government. The 13th Amendment marked a turning point in American history. It abolished slavery once and for all. No more forced labor. No more human beings treated as property. Except as punishment for a crime, slavery was outlawed. This amendment ended a brutal institution and opened a new chapter for freedom in America. The 14th Amendment expanded that promise. It said anyone born or naturalized in the United States is a citizen. It guaranteed equal protection under the law. It required states to respect civil rights. After the Civil War, this amendment became a cornerstone of justice, protecting not just former slaves, but everyone under the law. The 15th Amendment went further. It gave black men the right to vote. It said the right to vote cannot be denied because of race, color, or past servitude. It was a powerful statement of equality. But the reality was harder. Many states still used barriers like literacy tests and intimidation. The struggle for true voting rights would continue for generations. These 5 amendments reshaped the nation. They defined freedom after the Civil War. They reinforced the idea that America could grow, change, and extend rights to those once denied. The 16th Amendment gave Congress the power to collect income taxes. Before this, the government depended on tariffs and other uneven sources of money. With income tax, the federal government could fund roads, schools, and national programs. It created a steady stream of revenue that still shapes American life today. The 17th Amendment changed how senators were chosen. Originally, state legislatures picked them. That often led to corruption and backroom deals. This amendment put the choice directly in the hands of the people. From then on, voters would elect senators, making them more accountable and democratic. The 18th Amendment began one of the most controversial experiments in U.S. history, Prohibition. It banned the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol. Supporters believed it would solve social problems like crime and poverty. Instead, it fueled black markets, gang wars, and widespread defiance. Prohibition showed how hard it is to legislate morality. The 19th Amendment was a triumph for equality. After decades of marches, speeches, and protests, women finally won the right to vote. This amendment doubled the voice of democracy by recognizing women's suffrage as a fundamental right. It was not just a law, it was the result of a long, courageous struggle for justice. Together, these amendments modernized democracy. They gave the government new tools, removed corruption, tested social limits, and expanded the meaning of equality. The 20th Amendment shortened the gap between elections and the start of new terms. Before this, presidents and Congress often waited months to take office, leaving a lame duck period where little could get done. This amendment set January start dates, ensuring smoother transitions of power. The 21st Amendment erased the mistake of prohibition. It repealed the 18th Amendment and allowed states to regulate alcohol again. After years of crime, bootlegging, and public frustration, America admitted the ban had failed. This amendment remains the only one that directly cancels another. The 22nd Amendment set a hard limit on presidential terms. After Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected 4 times. Many feared too much power in one person's hands. From then on, no president could serve more than 2 terms. It protected democracy by ensuring leadership would change regularly. The 23rd Amendment gave residents of Washington, D.C. the right to vote in presidential elections. Until then, people living in the nation's capital had no say in choosing the president. This amendment gave them representation, though limited compared to states. The 24th Amendment struck down poll taxes in federal elections. For years, states used them to block poor citizens, especially African Americans, from voting. By banning poll taxes, this amendment removed one more barrier to democracy. The 25th Amendment clarified what happens if the president dies, resigns, or becomes disabled. It created a clear line of succession and a process to temporarily transfer power. It was written for stability, making sure the government could keep running during any crisis. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. The change came during the Vietnam War, when young men were drafted to fight but had no vote. The slogan was simple: old enough to fight, old enough to vote. This amendment gave millions of younger Americans a voice in their government. Finally, the 27th Amendment addressed congressional pay. It said any change to lawmakers' salaries could not take effect until after the next election. That way, Congress couldn't vote itself an immediate raise. It was about accountability, fairness, and trust. Together, these last amendments refined the system. They balanced power, expanded rights, and kept the government stable through change. So there you have it, 27 amendments, each one a milestone in America's story. From freedom of speech to the right to vote, from ending slavery to limiting power, these changes built the foundation of American democracy. Which amendment do you think made the biggest impact? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into how these amendments still affect today's debates, stay tuned, because the past is never really past.